The world of assisted living, memory care, independent senior living, and in home support can feel overwhelming for aging individuals and their families. Every situation is unique, and often there's resistance and a quiet fear of what aging might take away. In moments like these, you don't just need options, you need a guide, someone who can handhold you through the process, truly understand your needs, and offer clarity with compassion. Today, we are speaking with that someone, Sandi. She helps families make informed decisions, confident decisions about senior care, removing stress from a process that often feels heavy and uncertain. Sandi, welcome to Full Circle. It's a pleasure to have you here. Sandi, we've spoken earlier, we've had a bunch of conversations. Just for the audience, would love to actually start from the very beginning, right? Like what brought you into elder care? What has been your motivation? What keeps you going? Would love to kind of talk about that first.
Well, yeah, I joined this by default. I was in a company for 30 years and thought I would spend the rest of my life there, but then they were sold and reorganized, and so I needed to find something different. So someone brought Care Patrol as an opportunity to me to buy a franchise. And as I learned more and more about it, I thought this is really something that I want to do because it's a way that you can help people, but you can still make a living. And what a wonderful combination that was.
Yeah, got it. And sadly, I mean, in the conversations earlier, I've realized that you're probably one of the most, what should I say, emotionally involved into the job. Like I've seen you talk very closely about how it is to be part of some of these families, support them and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit more about that, right? Like how is the emotional roller coaster on that, the ups and downs of the journey, all of that, and how do you manage? I mean, manage being sane between all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, it is tricky. So I guess going back a step, what we do at Care Patrol is we help families find assisted living, independent living, memory care, in-home care. We're an advisor to the families, and a lot of times they come to us and they're in a crisis situation. Maybe mom has fallen and she broke her hip, and they can't take her back home because her bathroom is on the second level and she can't get upstairs. So we're dealing with people a lot of times that are in a crisis situation. And a lot of times what we find is that when we just talk to the family and just go through the process of finding out about their mom or their dad and what their needs are and what their financial situation is, they're just so relieved to have somebody there because nobody plans for this. Nobody says, or very few people, I should take that back. Some people do, but most people don't plan for this. They're going to stay in their home and that's where they're going to die. Well, sometimes it doesn't work that way. And so we're taking these families kind of by the hand and leading them through this process. And a lot of times it can be very rewarding just to be that person that steps in and you're the hero. Then there are other times where it can be so difficult where maybe the dementia is so bad that they don't have a lot of options, or maybe the finances are not the greatest and so they're limited as well. So those are the heartbreaking things. We just try to get people into the right place. So maybe we can't necessarily help them, but hopefully we can find someone that can help them at that point. So it is difficult at times, but other times it's just so rewarding, and I feel like part of the family, actually.
Completely can imagine, Sandy. Sandy, so I mean, extending that question, how do you maintain your mental balance in all of this, right? Like, do you do something specific, or does it just balance off at some level?
Yeah, it helps to have colleagues where you can talk. And even when I first started and I was the only one doing this in my part of the world, I still had other Care Patrol offices throughout the country that I could talk to. Now we have full staff, and so a lot of times we've got a group chat and it's like, I just had this situation, and it helps to get the thumbs up or the smiley faces, because people that have done this get it. But then I think the other thing too is that you have to keep balance by having your own life. I didn't always do this, but I started exercising a couple years ago and
Yeah.
make that part of my routine. And I take regular vacations, and yeah, sometimes you just have to turn off from it as well. Otherwise, you
Just
can
be crazy.
work 18 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So actually, Sandy, on that note, like for example, I've also kind of realized that exercise, some level of meditation, and all those things. Once you start doing it, it brings like a level of sanity in your life, balance in your life, sort of a thing. So I completely get that. Sandy, on that note, would be great if you could take a minute to sort of explain what exactly Care Patrol does, what is your day to day kind of look like, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, what happens is when we get a referral, and that may come from a hospital or a doctor's office, or lately we get a lot of people that know people that we've helped, and they call us. And so we go in and we help. Well, we go through with the family and find out what the situation is. And we might be there with the senior as well. But we find out what their likes are and dislikes are, what their care needs are, what their social, how do I say that? We want to find out what makes them happy socially. But then we also look at the finances, as I said, and then based on what we're looking at, what we see, we're able to make recommendations. And so once we make those recommendations, usually it's for a community, sometimes it's for in-home care, but if it's for a community, then we'll take the family and or the senior on tours, and we're with them the whole time, making sure their questions get answered, showing them why we think this might be a good option for them. But then they make the ultimate decision. We just give them options that will work for them. A lot of times, they have to be in a certain part of town, and they have to, they have to be able to play bingo, or sometimes they want to have trips to the casino. And, so we make sure that we get, we check off as many boxes for them as we can.
Good, good. And one of the other things that kind of struck with me that you mentioned earlier was that the revenue model is around what the facility kind of pays you. So there'll be a lot of times when you're helping somebody, but there is probably no revenue coming in as well. Talk me through that part. So
Yep.
talk me through a little bit of that.
So our goal is to help people. I mean, that is, we hire people based on their hearts, not necessarily their skill set.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we do, probably 2/3 to 3/4 of what we do for free, pro bono. So at times we're referring people to different resources that may be able to help them better than we can. Other times we're placing in communities that we don't have agreements with. We are always doing what we can for the client. It's not about the money. I always said that you do the right thing for the client and the money follows. And so to me, that's, you have to be able to sleep at night. And by doing business in that way, we sleep at night.
So Sandy, on that note, tell me, like, maybe give me an anecdote or something and tell me what's the most satisfying part, or what has been one of the most satisfying experiences, and maybe what has been one of the most heartbreaking experiences as well. Like what breaks your heart on this and
Yeah.
stuff.
Um, the one thing that I find so satisfying is, like I said, when you're talking to a family and at the end of the meeting, they're like, I'm just so relieved we have someone that can help us with this. I was so scared, and now I'm not scared anymore. And I have this one family, unfortunately, that I've worked with them multiple times because the mom had had a stroke, and so the parents needed to go together to a place. And then she got worse, and we had to move them to a different place. And then she ultimately passed away, and then the husband got dementia, and so we had to find him a place. And I feel like I know these girls. I feel like they're my sisters almost, because they're,
You've been through so
we've
much with
worked
them.
together so many times, and they're just so grateful, which is a nice thing. But I just feel so bad for them because, it can be an ever-changing situation with the elderly, and you never know what's going to happen next. But that's been I mean, that feels rewarding to me. I've got another situation right now. I have an aunt. Her husband is in rehab. He gets out today, and I talked to her yesterday. It's like, what do you think about getting some help in the home? I know she's totally stressed, and she's the type that has to take on everything herself. And she's very stressed, and it's like, can't we get somebody? And it's like, well, I'll have to ask my husband. And it's like, no, he's going to say no because he's stubborn and doesn't want help. And the help he gets, he wants from his wife. So, yeah, it's frustrating.
Sandy, in these kind of situations, like, and I'm not talking about this particular case, do you actually end up spending time with the patient as well? Like, would you go and speak to the husband and try to explain to him why it makes sense for you to get other help? Is that a conversation you do? You stay away from? How do you kind of play that?
It depends. We take the lead from our families. So sometimes I've been in situations where it's like, let me talk to them. There was one time I remember they're like, he's so stubborn, he's not going to do anything, he won't do it for us. And I said, let me try. Let me just try to get in there and talk to him. And obviously, we tried talking about how this is such a burden on his family, and his wife can't really help. And, he did agree ultimately to go someplace, but it took a lot of talking. And yeah, so we will at times. Again, it just depends. If there's dementia, we don't do a lot of talking because it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, with dementia, you sort of have to make those decisions, and the family has to make those decisions for them.
Sandy, at an ecosystem level, like for the entire elder care, long-term care ecosystem, where do you see is the biggest challenge, the biggest problems that you end up facing? I know we spoke about, and you mentioned in the call today as well, that people don't plan, right? So maybe from that or more like either at the individual patient and customer level or even at the ecosystem level. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it has been difficult. And basically, in the 11 years that I've been doing this, I've noticed that there aren't enough caregivers, and it is very difficult for the communities to hire caregivers or to get consistent help in the home. And the other really hard part about this is the financial part. People, they work, they plan for their retirement. Then, like I said, they were going to stay in their home and die there. They missed that part between retirement and passing away. They don't realize that there could be something else and they may need some help. So they don't necessarily save for that. And unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to get care. People say, well, I'll just get some in-home care because that'll be cheaper. And it's like, okay, that's about $35 an hour in Western Michigan, which I'm not sure is, I don't think that's an expensive place in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, that's not necessarily the way to go. And so it is difficult. People want a nice place to be, and sometimes, if you don't have the finances, it's tough.
I mean, and again, Sandy, this has been like a recurring theme in various conversations I've had, right? So there's a lack of planning. I think we're all optimistic. I don't know if we don't realize that we will eventually die and there will be a phase before that where we'll need support. But this is a recurring theme. The other recurring theme is exactly what you spoke about, right? So the shortage is, I think, very, very obvious and clear. The wages for care workers in the space are actually, from what I understand, lower than what a McDonald's pays, right? For flipping burgers sort of a thing. Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, tell me a little bit more about that. I'm sure you interact enough with these facilities. How do they put up with, the disappearance or the lack of workers? How do you have to adjust to that? I'm sure there are some facilities who have beds but not enough people, so they're not accepting as well. So there's almost more demand than there is supply. Is that the case? Walk me through that a
Yeah,
little bit.
there really is. Usually we can find some beds, but you
Got
may
it.
not be able to get in the place where you want to get in right away. We do see that it feels like it started with COVID. I mean, getting help had been difficult before then, But now it seems like there are people that they'll apply for a job, maybe they'll interview, maybe they'll get the job, and then they just don't show up
Sure.
for work. And the wages are not that great. Obviously, certain people pay more than others. And that's the other problem, too, is that somebody may jump from one company to another just for an extra 50 cents an hour. So the hard part is if it's just a job for someone, it's a really hard job. Caregiving is not easy. And especially if you're providing personal care, I know I can't do that myself. So it's, God bless those people that will do that. But when you find somebody that has the heart, that has that caring sense for the seniors, that's a wonderful thing. And they do it because they love it, and it's not just a job. They love the people, they want to help, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, like hats off to those folks, right? I mean, it takes a lot. I think in my opinion, it's one of the toughest jobs out there. Like, not only is it physically taxing, it's emotionally very taxing. So all of those things put together, I think the wage rates are kind of disappointing in that sense. Sandy, flipping to that, flipping the conversation, right? Like, while we spoke about what breaks your heart, what the challenges are, what gives you hope? Like, what are the things that you think are giving you hope that it's going to get better, we'll have a better tomorrow? It's okay if you say there is nothing like that, but I would love to hear some positive aspect as well.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that somebody figures out something, because I'm getting to that age where I need to be thinking about this. It is kind of interesting. I know some different people in the industry, and I know some different initiatives that are out there with people trying to think of what is next for assisted living. And what we have here in Western Michigan too is there's small group homes. And so the idea is to try to come up with something different. Maybe you have a cluster of homes with a caregiver where people can live relatively independently and then have, get help as they need it. People are coming up with new technology. Yeah, like I said, I hope they figure out something, because it is tough and it's expensive. And yeah, we're running out of space. So, and the baby boomers aren't done yet.
Yeah. In fact, they're just getting started on the other hand, right? Like with life expectancy and all going up and stuff.
Yes.
You brought up technology, right? So wanted to kind of go deeper on that. Like from a technology perspective, what are you seeing that's actually helping, that's working? Maybe talk about one of your favorite things that you've seen that has kind of helped. And I'd like to understand in your business as well, but in elder care in general.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really cool is that they have a adult brief that can tell if someone has utilized the brief and send a message to the phone. I mean, how cool is that?
How cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah, what a great thing that somebody can take care of that right away instead of having to wait. People use cameras,
fall detection and stuff.
Yeah, the hard part about that is some of the communities don't want cameras in people's rooms, which I find that a little bit discouraging. In a way I get it, but in a way I don't get it either, because you want to make sure your loved one is safe. And people use them at home as well. I have a 95-year-old dad who lives independently. He's got one of those wonderful personal emergency buttons that he can push if he gets in trouble, which is, he's done it a couple times, and that's why I have gray roots. And yeah, it's very helpful to be able to have a way to know that there's trouble without being right there.
And I think like even the brief that you spoke about is actually very cool, right? It basically means that you don't need to have somebody 24/7. You could actually, like in a care home, you could have one person kind of go around, do whatever is needed, sort of a thing. So nice, interesting. Any technology that you use in your own business? I know you are kind of more in terms of directing and helping folks, consulting, so to say. Is there, like, what kind of technology do you use as such? And it's okay if you say it's Excel sheets and stuff like that.
We of course have a database, just because we need to keep track of our families and we need to keep track of our communities. But other than that, it is so not about
About the tech.
technology. It's got to be about the personal touch. And I think that's something that we never want to forget, that you've got to have patience and you've got to have just the will to
Do
walk
that.
through this process with people. Because
Good.
it's not easy. And you're always going to get those really stubborn families, the seniors that don't want to do anything that the kids want them to do. And
Got it. Got it. Sally, we'll resequence the questions, but I wanted to actually bring this up. We spoke about how the initial engagement with the family sort of begins. There's either a referral from a hospital, somebody who's worked with you kind of says that, hey, let's go to Care Patrol, they'll be able to help you, sort of a thing. How does your continuous engagement sort of work after that? Like, is it usually, for example, some of these, the examples that you gave, is it more about the family reaching out when there is something, some other thing that happens within the same parents? Or do you keep a track of how things are going? And tell me a little bit about that, how you kind of manage that and stuff like that.
yeah, we absolutely check in with our families. If they make a decision, we check in with them and make sure that whatever decision they've made is working for them. And actually, we had something not too long ago where the family decided to take their mom home, and the family was going to split up the task of working, being there 24 hours a day. And it's like, okay, we'll call them after a couple days and see how that's going. And yeah, as expected, not well. So, but we do keep in touch. And if they move into a place, we're checking in with them, seeing how everything is going. And every once in a while, there are some issues, and so we help get those resolved with the communities. But we're following up on a regular basis, just making sure that things are going well, that it still makes sense for their mom or dad to be in this place. It's great because we'll stop by, especially if we're having tours in that same building. We'll stop by and visit with the folks and make sure they're doing well, or at least poke our head in and say hello. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
This is
I
a
always
very
told people that once you work with us, you basically have us for life. So
I don't want to ask if there is a process around this because I don't think there would be. It's very personal in that sense that you know the families that you've placed and you kind of go and sort of do that. So is there a process by the way, or is it more about how the individual team member of yours kind of draws this in terms of the continuous engagement?
as far as the follow up goes,
Yeah,
yeah, we actually have it set. It's a standard of ours that we contact them at certain intervals. So
got it.
yeah.
Okay, so you have that kind of process. So, Sandy, I mean, tell me a little bit about your team. Like within your franchise, how many people do you have? How many families does like one individual handle? Something about around that?
We have a total of 10 people on our team now. Started out just me. It's wonderful that we've got other people now. And
Yeah.
we've also expanded our territory. But we've got 5 care transition managers, and they're the ones that work directly with the families
Got
and
it.
help with the placement and, leading them through the process. We also have a business development person who is going into hospitals or going into communities to see if we can work with them, learning about their capabilities and seeing if we can work with them. Yeah, and there's a silent partner involved in
Sure.
this too. So, but then we have an administrative person.
Understood, understood. So, and like the 5 care transition managers, like how many families would they be working with at a time? Tell me a little bit about that. Are they stretched thin? Are they also kind of overworked like you are, or do they have a better life as such?
Yeah, the way we have it figured is the most they can work with is about 30 people in a given month. But a
Okay.
lot of those folks, it's a quick phone call. We find out what their situation is, and it's like, okay, maybe we're not appropriate, but let me get you over to this organization. They can help you. So yeah, it's really hard to say. At times it feels like they're working with hundreds at a time, but they're
I'm
not
sure.
actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then they're following up with others. So actually, like the number seems a lot larger than 30, but you're
Right.
saying that actively it's about 30 sort of a thing. That's a lot
Yeah,
actually. That's a lot.
yeah, that's about the most that we want them to handle because after
Sure.
that they can't be effective.
Yeah,
So it does
yeah.
it takes time,
Yeah.
and we want them to take time
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do the right thing.
And Sandy, I'm guessing like their day-to-day work cannot be too processified, so to say, right? Like I think there is a lot of personal angle. There's a lot of customization in terms of whom you'll reach out to. So it's not like a standard checklist or SOP that they follow. They have to kind of be on their toes and sort of figure out what to do for each engagement as such, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a list of, we of course have our database, and there's a list
Sure.
of things that we want to find out, but it is more of a fluid conversation. It's not like, okay, does your mom have this? Does your mom have that? Yeah, it's more of, what can she do? What can't she do? What kind of help does she need? Some people, they need two people to help them get out of a chair. Other people don't need help with that, but maybe they need medication management. So we just need to find out what, how they can be helped the most.
Good, good. I think Sandy, this has been wonderful. Before we close, want to request something from you, right? If there was a message that you wanted to leave with the audience, considering your line of work and what you have seen families deal with, what would that be? Like, what is the message that you want to
You know,
leave this show with?
My biggest thing, as I said, I have a 95-year-old dad, and he does not have dementia. If someone has dementia, this is a
Okay.
different conversation. But I let him make his own decisions and do the best that I can to support him. And I think families need to listen to their loved ones, again, if they don't have dementia, and find out what's important to them. And I know what's important to my dad is staying at home and being able to work in his garage. And what's also important to me is that I can't provide personal care and he doesn't want me to provide personal care. So at some point, if he needs that, he will move into a place and he's not going to like it necessarily, but he will do that because he knows that that's the right thing to do. So I don't know. I wish the elderly, some of them would be less stubborn, and I wish the children would be less pushy.